All right. So welcome back, everyone. Welcome if you're the first time here to Loading Architects Learning. We are here because we want to delve into the world of architecture and design, navigating career path in the era of AI. Um, I'll introduce myself first. I'm Adeline. I'm an architect working in Hong Kong, and I have a startup and at the same time a day job.
I'm Elena. I'm a student at HKE in Hong Kong, and I'm on exchange in Europe now.
Ooh, fancy. So cool. I'm so jealous. I say this every time. So this podcast is basically us sharing our views on architecture education, industry, entrepreneurship, and we want to be very open and light. And we just want to discuss our viewpoints so more people in the field can also feel encouraged to talk about it. So in this episode, we are talking about practicality or pragmatism and specifically about how practical it is, the skills that we've learned, the skills that we've discussed in the last episode, how practical are they in the real world? So, since Elena is now on exchange in Switzerland, very, very nice, and she is traveling as one should do when they're on exchange. I think we will kick off with Elena sharing with us the culture in Europe and how do schools teach architectural students skill sets and how do you see them perhaps implemented in real life? Are they practical?
I would say it really depends on the studio, but most of them, I would say they value creativity over practicality, which means in some of the studio we have really um great concepts of how to perform a review. So for say like if you have something to research on and then in the review on the later stage, you will have to think of a storyline which tells it connects all the researches that you have collected from the past 3-4 weeks. And after that, you have to come up with something that is very nice to be performed on the stage. So the review is much more like how you tell the story, and the part of telling is really important. But then if you think of the education in Hong Kong, I would say like the education in Hong Kong is more I would it is actually more practical than I thought before coming into exchange. I thought like the education style in Hong Kong, the way we have to develop our projects and to deal with the design is really creative, and it's not that practical. But coming to the European side of design, I feel like they are really exploring different kind of fields, and they have a diversity of um I wouldn't say it's not practical, but they are diving into different ways and then exploring things deeper and more broader than we did in Hong Kong.
Hmm. That's a surprise actually, because I've always had the impression that Swiss architecture is very minimalistic, very
Mhm.
practical, and they have great attention to detail.
Yeah, that
So
was what I thought.
right. So I wonder how the studio translates into the industry, you know.
Yeah, I would say like they're having a lot of philosophical thinking of architecture. They discuss a much thorough topics in why we are building architecture, and in the contemporary world, what is the problem with architecture and how architects can deal with those problems to contribute to a better future. Um, the philosophical side of the concept, I would say, is very different, and we haven't come across deeply in our education in Asia because uh, we paid a lot of attention on how to have our project done instead of thinking thoroughly why we are doing this. So I feel like here in Europe, they are paying more attention to the purpose of us as architects to deal with the contemporary problems.
Hmm. Yeah, I see what you mean. In that sense, the skill set is the ability to think and have an opinion and to understand one's role. It's almost like focusing more on the ethics of
Yeah,
architecture. And I do think in Hong Kong, that's not very often brought up in architecture school. Like we have, well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we talk a lot about spatial quality, right? There's a lot of focus on spatial quality and social architecture as well. It's very often a topic since we're such a dense city. But I don't actually think we talk perhaps enough about the global issues or even how politics affects architecture. I think we do shy away from that.
yeah, because I don't think I have come across any studio in Hong Kong that is correlated with broader issues such as, I mean, we discuss a lot of how architecture can be sustainable and how some of the technologies and how some of the certain materials is more sustainable. But in Europe, like we have like 20-ish different studios. So it's basically like 20 different architects are holding those studios with totally entirely different briefs. And then for some of those, they can even build a project out of history or out of politics, or they grasp those kind of concepts in different industries and to construct an idea out of those,
Right.
and not like they do not pay that much attention on how the circulation is solved, how how like practical that is.
Yeah. Or air
I don't, it
ventilation,
depends.
perhaps, or other details. But yeah, I guess it depends. Sorry, depends on the studio. Like you
It
just said,
depends on
and
the studio.
depends on the year, I guess, because perhaps all these things would be discussed in the master's program because currently you're in the bachelor's.
But we have the studio all together. So in one studio,
Oh, I see.
makes
It's a
all the
vertical.
years. Yeah, it
Really?
makes from year 2 to year so it's basically in after year 2 sem 2 you can pick out of those 20-ish studios, and then we mix the year 3 master 1 master 2 students, so it's all mixed up.
Wow. But they would have different performance criterias?
No,
Really?
it's just like in the last year they have something different called diploma, but essentially we're having the same brief, but they're just taught in a separate class slot, and they are having a thesis, which we don't have. So that is the only difference from the other students and the thesis students.
Right. I see. Oh, it's super interesting. So, so I have a practical question, which is, what do you think should be the KPIs of architects? What do you think the KPIs of architecture students should be, and versus the KPIs of architects?
Okay,
And why are they different?
yeah, after coming here, I feel like it is vital for architecture students to be aware of those contemporary issues, but at the same time, we need to have the skill sets to solve the problems. If you focus too much on probably the research phase of one project, then how would you develop your architecture to solve that problem is really important. To have the mindset of those problems, those issues exist in the real world is quite essential, because otherwise you wouldn't know like what is the purpose of your design. But then on the same hand, I feel like we need certain skill sets for us as architecture students to solve those problems. If you don't know how to do a drawing, if you don't know how to convey your idea to the others, then your project wouldn't be built.
Yeah, I
What do you
think I think the existing KPIs for architectural students are very different from the KPIs for architects at the moment. And I think we mentioned briefly last episode, 2 weeks ago, that there are so many different kinds of architects as well. And I always think about this because at school, the KPIs are how well you design, the aesthetics of what you pin up on a panel, how well you present, how thorough you are with your drawings, or even the variety of drawings that you pin up. And your time management, I guess, because you have just very limited amounts of time to do as many, to push as far as you can, basically, with the project. So, which means the whole system is making sure that you're as productive as you can be in a short period amount of time. Now, when we come out to work in the industry, and if we are an architect in a consultant firm, again, it very similarly, you have very limited time to produce something. And this is where I feel like the KPIs don't exactly work anymore in that sense. What I mean is, okay, so in the shortest amounts of time, you want to produce the most things. But as a consultant, that's not exactly a healthy or the most healthy way to do things. And what I mean is, you always want to be working smart in terms of the output for the client. And I guess perhaps my point is, it's quality over quantity. Whereas I think some architecture schools, they really focus on the quantity of things, do more, be more productive, give more, First of all, as a consultant, when you're coming out to work, giving more doesn't necessarily mean a good thing. It comes down to the agreements between the two parties, between the clients and the consultants. It comes down to what was previously agreed upon. And if you're working in a team, I think it's very important not to work blindly, to just make as much as possible, just to draw as much as possible, because it might be that the fee structure of the entire project might be something that you don't know about. And I think there are so many things, so many different factors, which might mean that it's better if you don't do too much, actually, because the client's about to change their mind, for example. That's what I mean. But because we have this mentality that we must do more, so then what actually happens is that I see a lot of architects and consultancy, they work very, very hard because they're used to it and they think they're doing a really good job, which they are. But the thing is, because of the fee structure of the project, actually the client at this point is entitled to have few changes, let's say, of the design. And the client asks for a different design. And I feel for the architects themselves, it's a little sad. I kind of wasn't able to find another word for it. But that is the industry. That is the industry. That's the reality as a consultant. And if you don't work as a consultant and you work with a contractor or you work on a client side, that's again another set of KPI. I'm working for a contractor right now, and very important thing that I need to do is for value engineering. I actually have to make sure that one of the things that I need to do is to make sure that we all align, like all parties align, the clients, us who are building it, and the architects, designers, we all align with finding the best type of this best design, best type of material to use, but at the best reasonable pricing to get something built. So that's a skill set, I guess. That's a skill set which, it's not, that's like stepping over to QS, like quantity surveying a little bit. And then that's also understanding the commercial side a little bit. That's also meaning that I must be, the design team in the contractor must be very familiar with the contract. And there are so many different types of contracts. So that's contract law even, or checking the client's requirements, understanding the building regulations. So that's a very different set of KPI to what it was back at school. Now, if you're a designer in a client side and you're a project manager, then your skill set should be project management. And that means contract management. That's also contract law. That means managing the entire program timeline, chasing down people, chasing down different kind of overseeing all the different processes. Again, it has to do with cost. So what I mean is we all come out from one same set of school, like school system. But at the end of the day, actually, how practical are those skills? Because perhaps they're not meant to be practical. Perhaps what we learn in school is not meant to be practical. But I think the most practical skill to take away from school might be the skill to think differently and to critically think in terms of what is best to do in that case. Don't just do it because perhaps your boss told you to, right? I think it's actually important to understand what is the full picture. Because I think in school, we just kind of do what the tutor asks us to do. I think there are some schools like that, right? But in Europe, perhaps it's different, where they encourage you to think differently and to have an opinion. And I think actually that being more creative is practical.
Yeah, it actually makes me to think whether, like, what is practicality in architecture? If we say that the mindset of how the contemporary world issues has, and then how the ethics of architecture works, then the training system here in Europe is quite practical to train you have the mindset of thinking differently.
Yeah.
But then, like, back home, I would say, like, I'm a quite practical person, that I focus a lot on how to solve something, how to solve the circulation of a design, how to solve, like, to have different spatial qualities of one design, and how to solve, like, certain details. And I thought that was practical, but then when thinking back and having this discussion, I feel like there's no right or wrong. It's just like focus on different things and different skills. I actually don't know how to evaluate those now after this discussion. I feel like both are quite critical, you know? The more I think of how creative our projects are now here, I've saw, like, different studios. Some of them are working on history, some of them working on politics, some of them working on landscape, or urban design. It's just you see a broader view other than just design one building.
Yeah. I come more now. There are so many things related to architecture. That's the thing. Like socioeconomics, urban scale history, everything is related to architecture, and how something is built is, I think that's the poetic side of things, perhaps. Like, if something is built the way they are, there are so many reasons why. Yeah. And it's not, and it's not just because the architect decided that the building should look like that. But there's just so many factors, there's so many stakeholders, and it goes back, like, historically, maybe there's some historic reason. Yeah, I think, the skills that you just described, like you're being very practical about how the circulation works, etc. That is really important to know as well.
Yep.
Can those be done with AI now?
Yeah, I guess like I'm taking another course called like machine learning. So like we're doing some inverse design from parametric design. So it's like we give it a parametric design in the phase 1, and then in the phase 2 you ask machine learning to learn your design and give you some generated results back. I would say like it's not that complex. I saw like before entering the course, I saw like I know a very minimum coding, and it will like lead me to somewhere very difficult in the course. It's actually not that difficult as I thought. So yeah, you're right. The circulation and stuff, the AI can do a lot of the generation work, which is more efficient than us humans do. But I guess like the mindset you have, the mindset architecture and architecture students and architects have would lead to a different decision-making process.
Yeah, for sure.
That's how humans are different.
Yeah. But do tell us more about the machine learning course. It sounds so cool. I really want to do it. But do you think that's practical? Learning machine learning.
Learning machine learning. I think that is practical. Okay, here's the story. So I think like machine learning, it is powerful. So if it is efficient, if it like leads to more like it makes me more productive, then perhaps I should learn the skill to free some of my time to other stuff. So in this way, it is very practical, right?
Yeah,
and that's why I want to learn it. So as I know what is an alternative of doing it manually.
Yeah, I think it is important to first learn the manual steps, though, like at least understand the concept, and then learn how the machine can do it for you. But tell us more about the course itself. Like, what are you coding in Python?
Yeah, we're coding in Python. We're coding in Python, and we're using some so some of the base machine learning coding was provided by the professor, and then we're trying to understand how those codings work, and then we're doing one design starting from a parametric design, which means we give it certain design parameters. Say how many grid, how large a grid you want, and then how many layers of buildings you want. And then after that, you calculate out some of the performance parameter that you focus on. So for example, the sunshine is a performance parameter, the wind speed is a design performance parameter, and then you calculate all those out. You tell the machine what is a good design, what is not, and then afterwards you do the inverse design, which means you give the machine the amount of sunshine I want to this building, to this architecture, and then it will generate some of the parametric design that you design in the first place.
So they must be okay, got it. But then the design must be parametric because everything needs to be coming out of an algorithmic formula. Oh, I see. That's very interesting. So why do you say that it's not as difficult as you thought it would be?
I would say it's like it is because of some of the tools that the professor gave us. So they have developed a plugin in Grasshopper that allows you to do the inverse design somehow with the code that they have already. And we are just trying to understand how the coding works, and we're designed based on the codes they gave us. And apparently the parametric design we have to do it ourselves, but then like the inverse design, because we're not that deeply researched in machine learning, it would be impossible to do it in one semester. So that's why like we're using some of the tools they gave us to generate stuff.
That makes sense. So there's already a plugin built. So is this an exclusive plugin, or everyone can download?
No, everyone can download that.
Oh, so it's a plugin in Grasshopper, and you guys are learning how to like ask for specific performance outcomes.
Yeah,
in using that. Okay, that's very cool. So for people who are not in school, for example, or they don't have this opportunity to take the course, how can they learn it themselves? Do you think they can is it possible to self-learn this stuff, do you think?
I think have you searched like if they have any like the AI course, machine learning course online? I think there are some of the open courses from different universities which tells you taught you how to do machine learning, how to do the AI stuff. But for practice in architecture, I think there are some like videos online, right? They must have some tutorials on machine learning. I'm not sure.
And the thing is, I think it will become democratized, meaning, well, we know for a fact that not all the schools are serving this course right now, right? I think the school that you're in right now for exchange is quite pioneering in that. It's well known for its technical expertise anyway, the school you're in. So I think in the future, it will be more and more democratized, like not just that course itself, but education in general. Right. I think a lot of things can be learned online. But actually coming back to this course or this machine learning and learning how to use machines to design, do you think it would be practical for every student to learn?
I think, yeah, first of all, you need to have some coding, the foundation. You have to learn some basics of coding, but that is not that difficult to learn, right? Like for Python, if you take an online Moodle introduction course, it wouldn't take that long. And after that, like I would say like the coding itself, programming itself is just a mindset of how to do the stuff step by step. And after you have the mindset, after you can understand what first of all what the coding is doing, and then second of all how the machine learning, the theory works, then it will be possible for everyone to learn the basics. And I wouldn't say like everyone needs to be computer science engineers. It is impossible like for you to understand everything in this field. But if some of the computer science engineers or some of the experts have developed tools for the public to use, and I think that will be the future, it will be possible for everyone to have access or just to learn the basics.
Yeah, agree. Do you think it should be a compulsory part of the curriculum, though, of a school?
Should it be compulsory in the school? I would say
it's like, before you answer that, think about this. It's most of the time I've seen history is compulsory. Like at least one course of history, building structure, visual communications, those are compulsory, right?
Yeah.
So do you think machine learning should be somehow embedded, like actually it can be part of building structure, if the outcome is actually helping the structure to be optimized. I think we spoke about this before, in terms of how it should be compulsory, or at least we understand that it's very necessary for architecture students to work on some sort of project with engineering students, for example, or business students, right?
Yeah.
So that's one thing. Yeah. So what do you think? Do you think it should be as important as learning history in school?
Um, I would say it depends on the demand of industry and demand of education, which means nowadays we are all using Rhino or AutoCAD or some of the other tools to develop our design and to produce some drawings and models.
Yeah.
That is not compulsory back in like 20 years, but it is compulsory now. So as the era changes, perhaps like in the next stage when everyone's figuring out which tool is more productive, then that one will be dominating the industry. That's my point of view. I wouldn't say like it would be necessarily be machine learning. But if something is more efficient and it's good, then it will be dominating the industry. If it's dominating the industry, then perhaps like the education at uni, the syllabus will include it. That's the logic behind for me.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, those who have, like a foresight, I think would agree as well. Well, I think we covered quite a lot today in terms of practicality, and I really like our conversation about what it really truly means to be practical and the different KPIs, and as a student and also as an architect working in the industry. So intrigued about the machine learning course. I'm going to look into it. I really believe in that too. Like, I really believe that is going to be our future, not just for students, but for the entire industry. Like you said, 20 years ago, no one is really talking about 3D softwares, and now it's a must, right?
Yeah. And I would say like before diving into this conversation, I was really thinking that I'm a very practical person, which means I do not evaluate poetic things that much. But then after this discussion, I feel like everything has some of its own place to be. And it's just how you combine the mindset you have and the skills you have to produce something that is useful, which is pragmatic. But at least for me, it's like you have the mindset, the knowledge behind is as important as the skills that you have.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like knowledge versus and the way of thinking, I guess, and that's a skill set in itself. Yeah, I think you're right when you said everything that we've absorbed and learned has a place in how we create or produce something or make a decision later on. So whether or not something is practical, a very diplomatic answer would be, it all depends.
This is how architects conversation goes.
It depends. Okay. Okay. Well, this is amazing. And so next episode, we will be discussing about supply and demand in the industry. So that's going to be interesting as well.
Yeah, I'll
So
see you in next 2 weeks then.
see you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.